Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on modern work in Microsoft using Loop. Pretty excited for the topic today. Well, let's dive in. We are recording this, and this recording will be available for circulation, both to everybody here as well as to anyone on your team. I'd love to start off with a couple introductions. So my name's Elliott. I'm the CEO of Elanix Technologies. And today we have with us Travis. Travis is our enterprise vCIO, and he serves as a point of contact, helping develop technology strategy, and shepherd a number of our clients along on their technology journey. Travis, thank you for joining us today.
Of course, it's an honor to be here. Thank you everyone for joining as well.
Awesome. So Travis, just to frame the discussion we're going to have today, why are we here? Can you share a little bit about the inspiration for talking about modern work and specifically the tool Loop within the Microsoft ecosystem?
Great way to start, Elliott. A lot of thoughts on this. So really what sparked this session is a growing realization that we're seeing across teams. We've never, ever in the tech sphere had more tools at our fingertips, and yet alignment is still slipping. Updates are still getting missed, and teams are burning cycles just trying to stay on the same page. And what if the answer isn't more tools, but it's the right kind of connection between them? And so this isn't about one more platform. This is about reducing friction, staying aligned, building on shared team momentum. And so Microsoft Loop speaks directly to that. And I'm excited to show later on how it can really quietly solve some of the biggest pain points that are holding teams and organizations and companies back. And we've really had a profound shift in the last 10 or so years. Most teams, when you think about it, worked in the same location, often with the same face-to-face check-ins. They'd bump into each other in the hallways. They'd ride the elevator to up and down the building to lunch. They'd have shared whiteboards or bullpens. But today, hybrid and remote work have really become the norm. And so on the plus side, we've gained a lot of flexibility with that, but we've lost some of that structure that used to organically keep people aligned. And so as a result, in 2025, teams are more asynchronous. They're more distributed, and quite frankly, they're more overloaded with tools. And so this new tech landscape demands a different kind of collaboration, one that doesn't rely on being in the same room or even online at the same time, especially as our work expands around the globe. And so communications has to be intentional. It has to be transparent, and it really has to be resilient to changes. Not only what does it look like later this week, but later this month or later in the year. And so that's where tools like Microsoft Loop come into play. They're built for this new rhythm of work that's continuous, it's embedded, it's always visible, always up to date, so that teams aren't just getting by with this, they're actually staying in sync without needing to chase updates. And I wanted, before I pass it back to you, I wanted to talk about the thought of yet another tool, and then I kind of refer to Loop as a tool. It's more of a operational glue or cross-functional fabric. Adding another tool is like giving every department its own map and compass. Sure, they're equipped, it might be shiny and new, but every single person is navigating alone. And so Loop acts as that shared GPS. So everyone is seeing the same route, the same updates in real time, the same changes, and adjust together. And so that's what alignment actually looks and feels like.
For sure. I thought that was a great way to open it. One of the words I keyed on that you mentioned was transparency. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on, and you could even use us at Velonix as an example, how transparency is important, or why transparency is important in how it affects daily operations and daily operational decision making?
Yeah, great question. So one way at Velonix that we bring transparency to life is by making sure that every team member knows what's been decided, who owns what, and where things stand. And that's usually where that gap is. It's those three different issues, and that's what Loop helps solve. And so what's missing with transparency is a sense of shared momentum. So it's not that people aren't working hard. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that most teams and most organizations and most companies are probably doing more than ever. And what's really missing is a clear line of sight into, again, what's been decided, who's doing what, and where things stand. And so when teams are dispersed, whether different shifts or geographically around the US or the globe, even minor misalignments can have ripple effects. So work can get duplicated, which is a huge sense of waste. Context will get lost. Updates don't travel well. And over time, what we're finding is that's leading to burnout, as well as breakdowns in communication, breakdowns in trust. And so Loop really helps fill that gap by giving teams a live, collaborative surface that follows the conversation and not the other way around. So to put a finer point on it, Loop is not trying to replace your tools. It's connecting the dots between them. It's keeping everyone grounded in the same source of truth.
Fantastic. So we're talking about alignment with teams, clarity of communications, everyone being on the same page with regard to information. I'd say the general problem is we've never had more tools at our fingertips to communicate better, but yet somehow it still feels hard. Particularly in a modern work environment where we're dispersed, we don't have these informal information exchanges that we used to have, 10 years ago. Can you walk us through, before we dive in specifically into Loop, can you walk us through a typical scenario where teams struggle to find information and be on the same page, and how it affects productivity? To maybe bring this problem down to the ground level and make it a little more real for everyone.
Of course. And I think this goes for teams that are just trying to get by, or even very, very capable teams. Everyone is spending an alarming amount of time doing what we've always done since the dawn of time, which is hunt and gather. But we're doing it now in the digital landscape. So we're piecing together decisions from meeting notes that we had, whether those are digital Post-it notes or physical Post-it notes, some sort of Word document or text file. We're searching chats for tasks that have been assigned. We're digging through inboxes trying to find the email that said exactly what we need for the next meeting, or we're trying to find in a chat or in an email the latest version of a document, often just to figure out what has been changed, who owns what, where things left off, so that we can be better prepared for what's coming up later in the day. And this creates a lot of frustration for teams and a lot of waste, because you might find the document you were looking for, it's version 8, you work on it, and because your head's down, you're focused, you have a meeting coming up in 30 minutes, you don't realize that version 9 just came into your mailbox there. And so that's the very definition of friction and waste. And it's not just a nuisance. It really does create delays. It increases and introduces a lot of risk, and it drains momentum. Critical updates become buried, and there's so much duplication of efforts. And so Loop replaces that with a live shared workspace. And that single source of truth really follows the conversation. And so you can almost think of it as a teamwork scaffold of sorts. And that's where real productivity lives.
For sure. I think we've experienced a lot of users, a lot of our clients purchase Microsoft 365. They're in the Microsoft cloud ecosystem, but they're not getting the full value out of their investment. Maybe they don't have full familiarity or training on how to use all of the components of the platform. And I think Loop is a great example of that. So for those who aren't familiar, can you give a brief overview of what Microsoft Loop is and how it integrates with the existing tools in the Microsoft ecosystem?
Yeah, excellent. So I'll start with how it integrates with the Microsoft ecosystem first. So most teams, most organizations are just scratching the surface when it comes to their Microsoft 365 subscription. They're using the basics, the tool sets that we know and love for decades and decades, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. Those have newer capabilities nowadays, but they're still constrained in some areas. They're of course using Outlook for email, Outlook for calendars. They're file sharing using OneDrive, and many organizations are using Teams for chats and for meetings. But 365 has really evolved into a full ecosystem designed to support modern work. And so Loop is that next iteration, that next perfect example of the 365 evolution. So Loop is not a flashy add-on. It really is a connective tissue, or the thread that ties it together, that brings work and conversations into alignment. And the best part is, for most cases, it's already included. You don't need a new license. You don't need to pay for anything extra. You just need to bring a new way to think about how collaboration can occur in the year 2025. And we've found, and even internally, we've found that once people really can see how Loop can be used to manage agendas or to track various decisions, to provide updates or organize input across the various Microsoft tools, it just clicks. It's not about adding more tech. It's about unlocking the value of the tech that's already in your toolkit.
Fantastic. So we framed the problem. We've described a little bit about what Loop is. Why don't we dive in and just take a look real time?
That sounds good. Let me share my screen here. All right, my screen should be coming through here. I wanted to set the stage, though, for everything that you're seeing on my Firefox screen here. So the best way to demonstrate the power of Microsoft Loop is in a realistic setting. And so I've set up on my other screen here a dedicated test environment using a special Microsoft 365 tenant. So it's been pre-populated with individuals, with names, with content, with artificial emails, with Teams chats. So it looks like, and really is, a real organization. And so all of that is running in my Firefox browser, and I'm using a special plugin that lets me stay signed into multiple Microsoft accounts at the same time. So what you're seeing on my screen, yes, there are many tabs here, but each of the colors at the top of those tabs, if those are visible, basically are different personas who are collaborating on the same project. And so we have our project administrator along with 3 other team members. Their names are Alex, Megan, and Grady, chosen at random. You don't need to remember the names. But as we move through this particular demo, you'll see that updates are made by one person are immediately reflected across the other tabs, live and in real time. So just as they would appear during an actual working session. So you can almost think of this as we're standing behind a row of desks with 4 different people. Someone's making a change and we're running to the other desks to see if those updates are being made. So at the top of this particular page, you can see the active user avatars. So right away, this gives you instant visibility into who's currently engaged with this particular loop, as well as the workspace. So, a subtle, powerful clue. It reinforces that there is a shared presence, that there is accountability, that the team is here ready to work. and that there is momentum building. So scrolling down a bit, we get a colorful header and a colorful icon in place. We can absolutely change any of this to fit the mood, but I'm feeling bright. We're halfway to the weekend, so we'll leave it exactly as it is. So below is an overview section that I created, and this page really started as a blank canvas. Loop does not shoehorn you or force you into any particular structure, and so I wanted to start with an overview because it feels natural for organizing this particular project. And so we've listed who's involved. We can easily just type the @ sign to tag them in there. We have the time frame and the review date and the final go live date. But imagine one of the collaborators. We'll flip over to them. So this is Alex's profile. Say that Alex wants to add a level of effort. We have what the time frame is, but we don't have how long this will take. And we'll just put it at the end here. So we'll put LOE for level of effort, and this project is going to take 85 hours. We can immediately switch back to the administrator's view. He sees the active tab here that Alex Wilbur is typing there, and the level of effort is 85 hours. And of course, we can click to others as well, and those changes are populating there. So no refreshing, no syncing delays. It's just seamless live collaboration.
So Travis,
yeah,
real quick, if I may, I think a lot of people are familiar with the concept of co-authoring. Co-authoring's been widely used across the Microsoft and Google ecosystems. People co-author on PowerPoints, Word documents, Excel files, saved up in SharePoint on a OneDrive. What makes Loop different?
That's a great question. I think the main difference here is that those types of collaboration, they are one-offs. You're collaborating in real time, but then you're sending a document or a link to a document in an email or in a chat, and there's no way to further collaborate live through there. So you're basically breaking out of a particular framework, and so it's a bit disjointed. And so a good way of thinking about it that way is collaboration in documents or sending emails or Teams messages. That's fast. That's digital fast food. Easy to grab, really quick to digest, but it's not great for long-term health. And so Loop is like meal prepping for the week. It's reusable and visible, and it keeps the teams with the right context without rework. And I'll have some good examples of how this integrates very tightly into Microsoft Teams as well as Microsoft Outlook.
Perfect.
Excellent. So let's scroll down the page here a bit. This is the Kanban board. Some say Kanban, tomato, but you can see various project tasks, each with an assigned owner. And so Grady's assigned to these, some of these, Megan, Alex, you can see who's doing what in those supporting details, notes, checklists. And if you're ever wondering who moved a task to done or who checked off a specific item in a list, you can just hover over it. So I can hover over done here, and that is the icon for Alex. And who changed sub item number 2 as done, that was the administrator. So you'll see a level of visibility that really encourages accountability and reinforces that what you're seeing here isn't static. This is actively managed, where collaboration is happening as we look in real time. I wanted to call a pause to everything that we've seen so far. Really consider the bigger picture here. How many emails have we already eliminated just through using Loop? Just in the few moments. Think about it. In a traditional workflow, we might have sent messages back and forth just to finalize the estimated level of effort. There could have been an email chain asking who's responsible for what, or is anyone going to be out of the office when this project is being undertaken? And notes perhaps would have been buried in different threads, or other messages would have come in pushing that important content to the top. But with Loop, it's all there, it's all live, it's all centralized and current, and you're not chasing down updates or wondering if you have the latest version of something. And so scrolling down a bit more into a little bit of a live demo that will cross over into both Teams and Outlook. So this is a 85-hour project, as we described. There's some tasks that are due, but let's plan the celebration lunch. So one of the team members wants to make sure the entire office is invited to the celebration pizza party, not just the folks who are working on this project. So we can take this particular Loop component, which is this pizza table here, and we can immediately paste it into an email. So this is Grady's draft email, and the subject, of course, please vote for pizza on June 4th. Here's the Loop component. And say Grady's like, there are no cons to pizza, so we're just going to delete this column. So it's now just pros and votes. Let's switch to someone else's view. We'll scroll down, and right away, that cons column has disappeared, as it should, because pizza is amazing. But the voting will happen in real time. And it can also be shared in Microsoft Teams. So here's, who is this? This is Alex is going to paste this into Teams, and that Loop component is there as well. And any changes, any voting tallies that are constantly being computed, everyone's always looking at that same up-to-date content. And I think what's really remarkable with this, though, is that even though this is embedded in Microsoft Outlook and it's going to go to the entire division or the entire company, that Loop component will stay live. So if the email goes out and you're out of the office for 4 days and you're going to make it a nice long weekend, you open it up on Monday, you're not going to see last week's version in the email. You're going to see the latest and only version, which has all the votes for how many folks want cheese pizza versus veggie pizza, etc. You're going to see the most recent updates and any new preferences automatically. So this is great to eliminate the 23 reply all emails that you're going to have about, can we have this particular option? And that really is part of the true power of Loop, of eliminating or greatly reducing the number of emails, having fewer information silos, and accelerating momentum.
So Travis, that brings a question top of mind. How do you account for version control, in edits and somebody potentially overriding or deleting somebody else's work? How does Loop solve for compliance and governance?
Excellent question. So first and foremost, there is version history that you can see who made what changes. And so as I was preparing for this webinar over the last couple of weeks, I was acting as these individuals. And so you can see the exact dates and times and who modified what. And it will highlight that particular text within the document. But one thing that you touched on with compliance and governance that I really wanted to speak about is Loop lives inside of Microsoft 365, as we established. So that means that it respects your existing security and compliance and data governance policies. And so this means you don't have to bolt on third-party platforms or worry about where the data is living. Everything is within the boundaries of your 365 tenant, and the same audit controls and the same sensitivity labels that your organization might use for any other Microsoft 365 content flow automatically to Microsoft Loop. And so that's a huge advantage for IT leaders who want to encourage innovation without compromising on oversight. So it really is a win-win because it's so flexible for the users, but it's secure and compliant under the hood.
Yeah, and that's certainly in 2025 across all industries, a really important feature. So say I'm an attendee on this webinar. I see Loop. I appreciate the problem. It's something our team experiences. Where do we get started? How do we get our team to actually use Loop? Maybe what are some use cases where you've seen this solution be particularly effective, aside from just selecting what pizza we're going to order for lunch?
I do think that is the most important decision. No, so of course, things like the voting table that I showed, it isn't just for pizza parties. It can really drive alignment on real decisions that need to be made. So imagine your leadership team is using a Loop component to vote on, which strategic initiative gets prioritized next quarter, or you're a department head trying to gather feedback on what training topics are most needed before committing the next quarter's budget to it. With Loop, you're not just collecting preferences, you're really creating a live decision-making space that removes that friction to accelerate the outcomes. And so if you have a 365 subscription, chances are really good it's already included, as I mentioned. So you can go to loop.cloud.microsoft to get started.
Fantastic. Could you maybe share a little bit more? You mentioned Loop threading across Outlook and in Teams. What about any of the other 365 applications or tools? Any sense for other places where Loop could potentially feed in, could potentially be useful, whether it's the meeting invite section within Outlook, whether it's within Word documents or Excel documents?
Yeah, excellent question. So it is within the meeting invites, you can include Loop components so that individuals can add their agenda items or provide updates to agenda items to keep the meeting shorter. And so that is absolutely possible. And then it is a great feature within Microsoft Teams there is the notes button. And so that effectively is opening on the back end a Loop component that everyone can see, everyone can write to. And so it again just is, Loop is kind of that Swiss Army knife that is in the 365 ecosystem.
For sure. I'll pause here and just do a check to see if anybody has any questions. We can spend a few more minutes kind of talking through potential how you use Loop in your day-to-day with your team, with the various projects involved. But certainly, if anybody in the audience has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. We'd be happy to try to address them. While we're looking to see if anybody has any questions, maybe Travis, share a few examples from your own work here at Velonix in terms of where you've seen, or it looks like we have a question from Nico.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Can hear you great.
I'm just curious, this is interesting, and I've been seeing all these sort of Loop, things appearing in Outlook and not knowing quite what to do with them. So this has been really helpful. Thanks you guys for putting it together. I'm curious about, we use, I'm just beginning to think about the different kinds of applications that we use this for. We use OneNote quite a bit for collaboration, and it's a little clunky. Is this basically replacing that? I mean, I know it's a lot more than that, but is this kind of replacing OneNote in some ways?
That's a great question, and it's something that I have thought a lot about, and just informally introducing this to the team as a kind of a mental shortcut. I've introduced this as OneNote 2.0 because it really kind of has those familiar features of OneNote, but has the back end power of the internet and the awareness of your 365 tenant in order to bring all of the necessary information forward in a way that OneNote just can't do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Nico, the only thing I would add, it kind of depends upon how your team is using OneNote. I do think that almost everything that I've seen folks use OneNote for, Loop is a better solution for. Not going to say that there's not a use case where OneNote really shines, but I think that principle that Travis mentioned about thinking about Loop as OneNote 2.0 really applies.
Okay, that's great. Also, we're looking at rolling out a sort of project-based, and we were thinking of using separate SharePoint sites and having external users be able to access it, and having like each project be sort of a separate SharePoint site that's sort of like integrated with Flow. And I know we don't need to get into the details and stuff like that or with everybody on the call, but I'm curious if like this could be something that might be a better solution for something like that. I know that's sort of vague, and if you want to
Yeah,
bat the question away, that's fine.
maybe I'll take a quick stab at it. Loop is a newer tool in the Microsoft ecosystem, but we are seeing rapid advancements on threading through the integration across the board. So for instance, Travis mentioned embedding Loop into agendas with meetings. You can see those agendas with notes straight through Teams. You can take follow-up task items and immediately convert them into planner action items. So if you're thinking about this as a full-fledged project management solution, it's not there yet. So, but they are making rapid improvements. So the question is it good enough to meet your team's needs today? And is it worth making the investment now in a platform that is only going to get exponentially better? And I would say if you want to explore that, certainly reach out to Michael, Travis, myself. We'd all be happy to take a look and see if it potentially is the right solution for your team.
Great. Thank you both.
Of course.
Certainly. Travis, I think we were going to maybe dive into some specific use cases that you find in your day-to-day with Loop.
Exactly. One of the things I really find useful, and I will scroll to the bottom, is just a really powerful key on the keyboard in Loop is the / key. And from there, you open up Loop's command menu. And so this is where the magic really happens. You can instantly choose tables or checklists, numbered lists, dates, format various headings, and you can even pull in synced content from other 365 apps. So that's really handy. And the other thing that I like as well is if there are a lot of templates. So we can create a new page in a workspace. As I mentioned, it's a blank page, but there are various options, various templates that we can use. There's a few suggested at the bottom, but we can click the template gallery. And from there, there are 24 and growing. This number seems to keep increasing with if you want to workshop at the elevator pitch with your group, you can do that. Competitive analysis. There's so many others that you can choose, and so it's really handy to have ready-made workspaces for those common workflows and really guide your team towards clarity and alignment and a good starting point.
Maybe one use case that I'll share that I find have found very effective is in one-on-one meetings. Creating these workspaces as a place to be able to provide things that are just status update items asynchronously. Make sure that those status updates are still there, but then spend that one-on-one time on something more meaningful in terms of helping a direct report think through a problem or helping them solicit feedback where they need my input. I have found Loop to be incredibly effective at driving better one-on-one meetings, as well as keeping a clear documentation on follow-up action items, driving accountability around commitments made. Certainly a massive improvement in that regard over OneNote and just having running tabs.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We'll hang around for a few more minutes. If anybody wants to ask any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. Hope this was helpful and useful in providing a lens into how you could maybe get more out of your investment in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, as well as what Loop is for those who've potentially seen those components popping up in various places, whether it be Outlook, Teams, SharePoint. By the way, these are all things that can be embedded kind of across the entire ecosystem as live, dynamic, collaborative tools. If anybody wants to learn more, wants to further explore with your team specific use cases for our existing clients, please don't hesitate to send in a support request or reach out to your account manager. They'd be happy to jump on a call and talk through. And for any folks that aren't current Volonix clients, hopefully this provides some insight into things that we can do to hopefully bring some value. Reach out to us. We'd love to chat if we can help. Thank you for attending. This recording will be available for circulation to your teams. And Travis and I will hang around to answer any questions should you have any. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Elliott. How you guys doing?
Thanks, Eric. Doing well. Great to see you. How are you?
Good, good. It was awesome. And all this is really awesome stuff. Like, I haven't really dove too much into Loop since Volonix. I have used it primarily only for OneNote to replace OneNote. And I like what you guys have been doing. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.
You as well.
Sounds good.